The Do This podcast is part of the Win, Make, Give podcast network. Join hosts Chad Hyams and Bob Stewart as they chat with Brian Gubernick about the secrets of top-performing real estate teams. Brian reveals 8 key habits top teams have and discover how successful team owners manage time, leverage personal projects, and understand financials while maintaining clarity on value propositions. This episode offers invaluable strategies for building a profitable and efficient real estate business. We hope you enjoy this episode of the Do This podcast, presented by Brivity.
There we go. We are live. Surprise, whether you're ready or not. I'm not sure if Bob Stewart is coming yet. Chad Hyams is here for you folks, and I am excited about today's guest. I didn't know who we were getting talked to until I got here today and saw him. Brian Gubernick, welcome to Do This.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. I'm excited. I've been wanting to come hang out with you guys. The invite has taken much longer than I expected it to. Maybe I'm full of myself, but whatever the case may be, I just haven't heard from you.
It's not Bob. Bob and I don't do the invitations. We just show up and get to see who Dave Wiggs has brought us. We will file a feedback form with Dave on your behalf.
Perfect. I would appreciate that.
Should have been sooner for Brian. All right. Brian, we love to have our guests put him on the spot a little bit. Introduce yourself to everyone. Let them know who you are. Excuse me, I'm recovering. Who you are, where you are, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I am. I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona. Why am I wearing a sweatshirt if I'm in Arizona? That's probably the first great question that should be asked. Chad, as you know,
air conditioning.
It's air conditioning, but I'm also one of those, weird cold plunge guys. And so whenever I get in that thing in the morning, it takes me like 4 hours to warm up. So I'm still in like the process of thawing out. It's only 10:30 my time, but I'm here in Scottsdale, Arizona. I've been out here a long time, been in real estate for quite some time, and became a sales agent in 2007. Is when I started selling properties, which is the best time to get in the real estate market for those older heads like me. But it worked out all right. And built a team and took that team to multiple states, and then eventually got in the brokerage space and the title space and the mortgage space, and I've worn lots of different hats. And today, fast forward, today I spend the vast majority of my time as the chief real estate officer of Place, the company that is Place. Still quite not sure what that title means, but it allows me to do lots of different cool things. And then I coach and train through a company called Metrics Mastermind. So still dabbling in lots of things. But the point here, Chad, and I'll get to it, I think all of the experiences I've had, the good ones, the bad ones, being around the highest producers, what it allowed for me to do and allows for me to do today is speak somewhat intelligently around what works and what doesn't. I think in my seat today, the roles that I hold today, I probably talk to more top team owners and top agents across the nation than most anybody. And it's nothing special I do. It's just the nature of my role and where I spend my time. And so I've got a pretty good take, both in terms of my own practice, but from those I get to work with, I have a pretty good take as to what I think is actually working and what the best of the best are doing.
You said in there, speak intelligently. I got really concerned before you finished that sentence. You paused, because I was figuring that you had the ability to speak intelligently, and thankfully you were here to help Bob and I finally achieve that level. So maybe one day we will get there too.
Well, no, I don't know if it's so much that, Chad, but I do know one key to success is punctuality. And I don't, I have found that those that are highly successful are also, Bob, it's good to see you here, buddy.
Bob made it.
Hey, I'm not going to lie. I debated not even showing up because Brian Gubernick is so smart that I did not want to. And so that was actually fear that kept me out of this room for the first 2 minutes. But I decided, you know what? I can do this.
It's more like Brian's so verbose, I'm not going to get a word in, so why even show up? I get it.
I'll just let Chad ask one question, and Brian will go from there. Bob, we're glad to have you. Brian just introduced himself. And Brian, you've been around so many top producers. So what is it we are going to be covering today? What's the target topic to help our audience learn how to do this with you as our guest?
I think what would be fun, and you guys tell me, but David Wiggs and I were chatting about a week ago, and he's like, well, what do you think is most relevant for agents to know today and teams to know today. And I think our audience, correct me if I'm wrong, Chad, is a good mix of team owners and individual agents and high-performing agents. We have a good variety. And I said, it reminded me right before I started my role with Place, so just a few years ago, because I've been here that long. I kind of retired for a minute, which conversation for another day, but I hung out, took a break for the first time in my business career, and took a break doesn't mean like sit around and do nothing. Much like you guys, if you both started doing stop doing your day jobs today, you've got plenty of things that you're interested in, passionate about, and that you'd be doing. Well, for me, I was admittedly like trying to figure out what's the next biggest opportunity in the real estate space. And I started interviewing all of the who I perceive to be top teams, not all, but a lot of them, and top agents. I ended up interviewing one-on-one 29 different team owners to learn what makes their team successful and what makes their agents successful. And the idea was interview them and then try to figure out, this is before AI would have probably done it for me, figure out, what are the common themes? What am I seeing show up over and over again for these teams and for these agents?
Brian,
I was sharing that with David, and I'm like, God, it'd be fun to go through some of that stuff again because it's still relevant, very, very much relevant today.
I think I've seen you present this before. And this is one of my favorite things that I've seen you present. I just brought it up within the last week. This is like the concept of like treating your business like a professional versus treating your business like an amateur. That's one of the ways you've packaged that and talked about it. I think this is like really, really good stuff.
Before we get into it, Brian, then and hear that, Bob, I want to ask you, was it Brian's wall when we interviewed him on Win, Make, Give that inspired you to have your baseball card wall?
I don't know. I mean,
because I think I remember it was around the time where Brian,
maybe.
And Brian, I just want you to take a second for our audience and explain the wall behind you.
What's going on the wall?
Yeah, because that's a collage of photos, but there's a specific theme to it.
Yeah, no, well, it is. I mean, obviously, it's a lot of individuals and people I look up to or love. No, each one of those pictures, to me, there's a theme behind each of them, and I won't go through them all one by one. But Chad, I love it. Something to each of them. Like for example, at the very bottom here, you probably can't see it all that well. That's Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders,
greatest running back of all time,
is my favorite football player of all time. I'm an Arizona Cardinals fan, but I still love it. Detroit. What do I love most about Barry? The humility out of the greatest running back of all time is I look at that and I think humility. There's a guy who scored touchdowns and lots of them, but he always just handed the ball to the ref. Right. And he played for one of the worst teams in the history of the NFL, yet stayed there, played his whole career there. I have next to Barry over here is the Willie Mays catch, where he catches it over his catch. And when I think about that, I think about iconic. Like there's a picture that at least my generation looks at, and Willie's way older than that, but we look at that, we know what that picture is. Like that is one of those like iconic moments in history. I've got John Wooden up here in the corner with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. At least I think he's the greatest sports leader of all time. So there's lots. Rosa Parks is in the middle. I mean, we all can have a different take. I look at Rosa, I think courage.
Oh yeah.
I think courage.
Folks, I would challenge you. You want to do this from these calls? Do you have a wall like that in your office? Somewhere that you're looking at those people that inspire you, bring those iconic words to your brain, putting you in the mindset of greats. I know Bob went, and I'm really sure it was when we saw Brian's wall, that Bob then started collecting baseball cards of people who really mattered to him. And he's got them up on his wall that he stares at. Folks, I would challenge you guys. You want to do something? Brian's going to bring us amazing stuff. That's something right there worth doing. Making sure, I don't care if it's your screensaver on your phone or your desktop, something like that inspires you each and every day.
I appreciate you bringing it up. It actually means a lot. It means a lot to me. And it's not like just trying to get cool pictures up on the wall. Like every one of those people are people I've grown up with or aspire to be, or I learned something from much. And we all have, Biggie Smalls is on here, right? But my generation, like Biggie, like that was a story of triumph. That was a story of growing up with nothing and amounting to something. And that, to me, that's just I'm inspired by that story. So anyhow, there's lots of cool things you could probably put up on your wall. Thanks for asking that.
Let's dive into what you learned then. So you studied these top teams and top agents. Can we just knock down a few of the things that those people like consistently and reliably are doing that maybe the amateur or the person that dabbles or doesn't hit their goals always or is not doing, Brian?
Yep, 100%. I actually found 8 common themes or actions that the top teams and agents in the nation are doing. Now, I think it's really important, Bob, and I want to take 30 seconds to do this. I think we have to define what does it even mean to be top, because my definition might be a little bit different than most. When I thought around top teams in the nation, our default in our industry is what? Go to units, go to volume, go to GCI. And while that stuff matters because it's effectively the revenue of the business, when I think of top, I actually was thinking profit. And to me, that's a really important delineation, right? Like I'm not just talking about accumulation of units. I'm talking about making money.
So right. How many people do we know that make $200,000 yet it costs them $195,000 to get there?
That's right. So when I say I went and talked to 29 of the most successful team owners, I had to find somehow, some way, a way to find out or determine, hey, is this really a highly profitable organization? And by the way, not just profitable for 1 year, but for multiple years. In my mind, when I went through this project, it was at least 5 years in the business, proving that they weren't a one-hit wonder. So I needed to see consistent year-over-year growth in revenue and in unit count, but I also wanted to see profit and positive brand recognition and a solid reputation in the industry. So I think that's a good qualifier. I went to each of these teams and their agents and asked them some very specific questions. And we don't have time to run through the questions, but let's talk about the results. Here was the very first commonality I saw amongst the top teams. And as I said, there was 8 from these 29. And when I say 29 teams, they all had agents that I talked to as well. The first thing that showed up for the higher performers versus those that were not as high as performing was that I described it as they had a predictable environment. All teams that I talked to that were of this success criteria had a predictable environment. What do I mean when I say predictable environment? There was no guessing when that team or those agents, like when they went into the office each day, as to what it is they were going to accomplish. The standards and expectations for each of the roles is very clear. There is a cadence to the day that is very consistent. There was a team calendar that outlined when are our meetings, when are our events, etc. And there were resources and training that existed that were very consistent. So my point here, though, is there's no guessing. These were predictable. So maybe said differently, Chad, Bob, the opposite of success, the less successful teams, individuals come in and guess what their day is going to look like. So the more predictable, it looked like the higher the success. Jocko Willink is best in terms of describing this. What does Jocko say? It was the discipline equals freedom concept. I saw that play out in real time with these teams. That was the first big one.
Okay.
Any thoughts for you guys? I know that in your world, I know you're interviewing me, but I'm throwing it back to you. You guys talk to a lot of high performers. When I say predictable environment in business and in life, do you see how that kind of shows up or where that would play out?
Bob gives a great example of looking at the numbers in Brivity, where he's tracked it. And Bob, you can jump in if you want, where he says, if people show up and make like 200 calls in a day or something like that, that's great. But if they don't show up for 3 more weeks, they lose to the person who every day is making the 25 or 50 calls because they're consistent.
The predictable environments.
We don't want to take too much of your time because we got 15 minutes for you to get through the other 7.
Brian, I think the flip side of that one is even more enlightening, right? Like if you have this chaotic, unpredictable environment, you're much less likely to get to where you want to go than
it's a good segue to the number 2, right? When you talk about Brivity, the second thing that I see show up is the best agents and the best teams keep score.
Yeah.
There's a scoreboard. Like bottom line, successful teams keep score and they know what winning looks like. They score their lead activities, like what's my lead gen look like? How many appointments are we setting? How many agreements? And they also are tracking, of course, lag results, closings, commission, etc. Most of these teams that I talked to that were successful were very clear, and this is important. Don't brush this one aside. They were very clear on what winning or losing looked like every single day. Like there wasn't, and it wasn't subjective, it was objective. Hey, today a W for me is 10 contacts. A W for me is 2 appointments. I don't so much care what it was, but they all would have they all had a pretty clear definition that could be measured on a scoreboard as to what a W looked like. And I love that. Like that's just so important. And so many of us, like I'll ask an agent today, hey, how'd the day go? I mean, I'll probably text 7 or 8 or 9 agents today and say, hey, how did you go today? And a lot of them will say, oh, it felt like it went okay. Or, oh, I had some really good conversations. And while I appreciate that, that's not a scoreboard. That's a feeling. I'm not looking for feelings. The best of the best don't have feelings. Don't have feelings around success. Number 3, this was specific to the team owners. The team leaders of the most successful teams actively plan and manage their time. So maybe said a little bit differently, the most successful team owners were planning their days and their weeks, and they were leveraging a calendar to block their time. And for the most part, they honored their time blocks. So while there's some random unplanned work that I think does occur, for the most part, these team owners had a regular schedule. And I found this really interesting. Their schedule was openly shared with others on their team, specifically like their staff and all that. I know that might sound like trivial, but again, what was my takeaway here? They're actually running like a corporate structure or corporate organization would. Like in my world, your world, we all kind of have this, have a background in or currently are in this corporate environment. There is very much a structure and cadence to your day. The highest performing real estate team owners are running their real estate businesses like real businesses. That's just the reality. They're structured to that degree.
I bet that most of those 29 like team leaders very rarely say, I don't have time for that if that thing's important, Brian, right? Because that thing's their recruiting is a 1-hour block on their calendar 3 days a week or whatever it is.
I think they all aspire to get better at what you just described, but there's no question they're thinking about it all of the time and trying to maximize their time, like trying to prioritize and maximize, which leads a little bit to number 4 out of the 8. The team leaders and the top team leaders, team owners and the top agents leverage, and this was an interesting theme to see, they leverage what I described as personal time, personal work time. What do I mean when I say that? The successful agents and the successful owners have a weekly and in some cases daily chunk of time that was blocked exclusively to work on their own personal projects or areas of focus related to the team. So for example, team owners on a weekly or even daily basis of the highest performing teams had personal projects like strategic planning or data review, or maybe writing of course material or planning one-to-one meetings. Some of them were even, and I love this, and I know you two love this as well because you both live this way. Some of them had blocked thinking time, formal thinking time on their schedules where they would start with a positive or powerful question and get in front of a whiteboard, or they had an informal thinking time where they were just in front of a whiteboard. Whatever the case may be, I love the concept of thinking time, like just blocking an hour and contemplating a big question as it pertains to your business or your team. I saw the best of the best actually doing it. That excites me because Thinking Time's talked about in a lot of books. I was unclear as to how many executed it, but when I ran this project, I found a lot of them do. A lot of them do. Since we're talking about Thinking Time, it's not easy for me to grab. I thought the Keith Cunningham book was around here that talks all about Thinking Time. The Road Less Stupid. If you're looking for a good book on Thinking Time, find The Road Less Stupid. It's one of my favorite books, and it's around here somewhere marked up and in shambles. There it is. I see it. I'll grab it if we have time. That was number 4. Want me to keep going? 5, 6, 7, 8?
Let's go. Yeah, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Number 5. The best team owners and the best agents, they and their key people understand the team's financials. All successful team owners not only reviewed their monthly financials, but they understood what they were reviewing. What do I say when
That's a great differentiator right there, Brian, because I remember the first time I was reviewing financials, I just looked at like the 3 numbers that I knew and I was like, okay, good, right? Because I didn't understand originally what I was looking at. I was just looking.
I so appreciate that. And Chad, I would even say you were ahead, because what I found with the unsuccessful team owners and unsuccessful agents was that they may have maintained books, but it was simply to hand over to the accountant. They weren't maintaining a P&L so as to analyze their business and make strategic decisions. The best of the best may not have had an understanding of the P&L before, but they became a student of it so that they can then leverage it to make decisions. I found when I interviewed these teams and these agents all had a slightly different process, but they all had a very similar degree of awareness. And they all had more than just their own eyes on the financials. And I think that could be treated as trivial, but it's actually significant. In other words, they didn't hoard this information and just not let anybody important in their organization see it. Their director of operations, even their peers in many cases, their mastermind groups, they were leveraging this data for deeper conversation. That's number 5. Number 6, you two will appreciate this, much like all of these, but I think you'll really like this. This was consistent across the board. Successful team owners and agents are teaching nonstop. They are teaching nonstop. All of them. Everyone I talked to, they were running classes for their own team. They were running classes for their brokerage. They were on the road doing something. They were coaching. Their content all varied based on their passions or maybe their area of expertise, but they were all teaching. And it wasn't just around sales skill, though a lot of it was. It was leadership. It was wealth building. It was life skills. It was motivation. They were doing group. They were doing one-to-one. And they were doing it not just to develop develop their team, but they were also doing it for recruiting purposes. And a lot of them were doing it, and this is one of my favorite topics, they were doing it to force themselves to learn the material before they could teach it. As you guys know, you want to learn something, throw it on the calendar and start and force yourself to go learn it so you can teach it to others.
Yeah.
That was number 6. Number 7, 2 more here. Number 7 for the top of the best, what I found, and this is kind of a broad definition because it varied quite a bit. I found what I called the best of the best being executive athletes. They were executive athletes. What do I mean when I say that? They're for the best, all of them. I'm not going to say they're the fittest, healthiest individuals out there. Some of them are, but not all of them were like the epitomes of fitness. But they were all focused on health and energy. They were all focused to, they're all committed to personal development. They were committed to growth. And they were all, from what I could gather from my questions, again, this goes for top agents as well. They were all super purposeful with their circle. In other words, they were very purposeful around who they're spending the most time with. And an interesting side note, a lot of them had stories of when they were not that way. It was kind of interesting. Like, hey, I built this big organization and found myself unhealthy or had some sort of health scare. And so now here's the way I am. Or, hey, I built this organization, but I was hanging around the wrong group. And as a result, this happened. And here's the way I am. And so I'm sharing that, like with a lot of them, there was something that happened that triggered them to get more purposeful in these areas and be an executive athlete, be the Tom Brady of real estate. And I share that with this group today because we don't have to go through something to trigger action. We could do something now before that something happens.
Proactive, not reactive.
That's right. That's right. And then the last one, number 8. The last one, number 8. The highest performing teams, and again, specific to profit, and the highest performing agents, they all had value propositions. And they were clear on those value propositions. They could articulate it. When I say value prop, I mean the value you provide to the agents on your team if you're the team owner, and the value that you provide to the consumer if you're specifically the agent. They were all very clear on value prop. In other words, whether or not it was accurate, it's not for me to discover. I didn't have enough research to say, oh yeah, they said their value prop is this and they delivered it. I couldn't tie that out. But I will tell you that every one of them I asked, if I said, what's the value of joining your organization? It was like, boom, knew it. Exactly. Here's what it is. You join me and XYZ happens. And for the top agents, what's the value of working with you? It wasn't like, oh, like I probably get you the highest dollar on your property and like you're going to have a good experience. None of that. They were very, very scripted. It was organic, but scripted, like understood their value prop. So that was big. And for the team owners, truth is, it's most successful. They all had recruiting on their mind all the time. Like everybody was an opportunity for them because they believed so much in their value prop. It was like, I want to help people. So team leaders know what value they bring to agents. Agents know what value they bring to the consumer. At the very least, it may not be deliverable, but they're very confident about it. And they're always thinking about people to bring into their respective worlds. It's nonstop. Like it's not work 24/7. It's that I believe so much in what I do. I want people around me. So those are the big 8. I mean, there was like 17 different things, but that's what I was able to narrow it down to. And it was across the board, man. Now, did everybody nail all 8? Not necessarily, but I'll tell you like 7 of 8, 6 of 8. Yeah, for sure. And I think those are reasons these teams are highly profitable and successful.
Brian, which one, so you work with a lot of teams that don't have many of them. Maybe they got 1 or 2 of these and they're not as like, what do you think is on this list of 8 is the one that is deficient in more businesses than not and is actually solvable?
That's an easy one for me. It's number 1 and number 2, which is part of the reason I made them number 1 and number 2, which is predictable environment. We already talked about it, and keeping score. It's easy. I mean, that was the no question about it. The best teams, you did not show up at 9 a.m. and guess what you were going to be doing. You had a cadence, you had a protocol, you had a process, and you executed it. And the teams that executed upon that plan most regularly were the most successful. And they had a scoreboard to define whether they were winning or losing. Those 2 things stood out, like were prominent, especially with the teams that were less than good. Like the second they told me, oh, we all kind of come in and maybe we'll make some calls. I instantly, I was like, no way this team's going to be one of these successful teams I'm looking for. And that's
Hold on. The second side of the question though is easily solvable. Like, do you feel like that is an easily solvable problem for that team? Like, is it a matter of just tomorrow, guys, we're coming in and we're going to like, how do I make the transition to solving that? I guess does it start with one day asking everybody to come in and be more reliable, predictable?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you got to think it through, right? Like, I know this might sound like a silly analogy, but Chad works out nonstop. Chad, I'm sure people ask Chad all the time, hey man, how do I get healthy? How do I get fit? And Chad's not going to just spew out a bunch of ways to go do it. He's going to say, all right, let's develop a plan. Let's develop a fitness program for you. And that program is going to consist of some sort of training regimen, be it running, lifting, resistance training, whatever it may be, and something around food. Now, is Chad just going to hand that over and say, go and run, best of luck? No, he's going to say, all right, Tomorrow's day one. If we try to go 0 to 100, probably not going to make success. So what are the baby steps we could take tomorrow such that you clock a win and you start to build a habit? After a week, this is going to become easier for you and we can start scaling and get to the point of consistency with bigger ticket items. But we got to start somewhere. So again, Chad's going to write a program that's going to have fitness, weight training and food. And then he's going to hold your hand and walk you through it until you're ready to run on your own. And the idea is simply build the habit, build the routine. So in terms of team, and I know we got to jump. Start somewhere tomorrow. For some of you, it might be just getting everybody to show up at 9 a.m. and having a kickoff meeting. And I'm going to clock that as maybe that's a W for you. So for some of you, it might be, you know what? If I could get 80% of my people making 10 contacts tomorrow, that's the start of the fitness program. And then make it predictable, which is simply habit created, and score it so that everybody knows visibly where we stand, whether we're winning or losing.
Brian Gubernick, I think we could have you back here many, many more times. And if we do again, I promise I won't be late.
Oh, it's all right, Bob. I know you've got a million things going, and Chad and I are less important, but I appreciate you being here.
I was on with Jake DeRosa before I got on with you guys, so you can decide who I feel is more important. You guys have an amazing day. Brian, thanks for joining us today. You guys get out there and do a few of these things if you're looking to be a successful agent or grow a big business with profit. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
Bye everybody. See you next week, Chad.